Headlights. They're one of the most important components of your truck and often one of the things that owners will first modify when they get a new truck. We see a ton of headlights come through the door here. We're talking about them, installing them, filming videos on them all the time. And some of the stuff that we always talk about are the beam pattern, the color temperature, and the overall lighting output. But those are things that we don't often get to demonstrate on the day-to-day. So I thought it might be fun to do a little demonstration of some of the most popular types of headlights. So I stole our 15 Sierra here, and we're gonna throw some different headlights on this truck and talk about some of the differences from stock all the way up to some really nice LEDs. So let's hop on in and see what it looks like. We're in the truck, the room is dark. That's the only way to be able to actually see what these lights are doing. So again, these are the stock lights, pretty standard projector sort of setup. They've actually got a pretty nice sharp cutoff, as you can see right there on the wall ahead of me. There's a pretty distinct line all the way across. Now we're about 20 feet back from the wall here. We're not gonna be able to get the full 25 feet that they usually recommend to aim the lights, but we'll do what we can so you guys get an idea. And again, these are pretty standard projectors. They have sort of a nice warmer tone to them. Again, this is a bit of a warmer color. These are incandescent bulbs inside after all. Given what they are, again, nice cutoff. It's a pretty wide beam pattern, not too bad. And even when we flick the high beams on, it really just kind of raises that cutoff up a little bit, makes it a little bit wider, but not too much different. In fact, this pattern is kind of funny because it looks like two sort of cat eyes on the wall there. Anyway, with that, let's go ahead and throw the aftermarket set of projectors on and see if that makes any difference. Now we're back with the Raxium Axial Series projector headlights. These have black housings and clear lenses on them, so they're pretty much a like for like, if you will. So these replace the stock headlights. They just plug right in, which is one of the nice parts about them. You don't have to do any wiring, even though they've got some cool LED running light things. The main beams are very much the same. Now, as you can see here on our wall ahead of us, these have, again, that sharp cutoff that we saw with the stock headlights. They cast a beam that's a little bit wider, and the actual color temperature is a bit different. Again, you can just attribute that to slightly different bulbs, but it's very similar to what we were seeing previously with the stock headlights. So again, that's the benefit of these. You're not losing out on anything. In fact, you might even gain a little bit of visibility. I have these adjusted a little further up than I did the stock ones, so you can see a nicer cutoff on the wall here. And again, they cast a little bit of a wider pattern. If we flick the high beams on, again, you get a little bit of a wider pattern. This is a little bit less focused than what the stock ones were. So you can see it's kind of almost a plateau, if you will, up on the wall. Kind of interesting. We don't have any of those hot spots like we did with the stock ones, which is kind of nice to see. Again, it means it's just going to throw a larger swath of light. So let's get these off and get on to our next one, which are going to be projector headlights with smoked lenses. I want to see what that's going to do. Okay, next up we have these projector headlights with amber corner lights, chrome housings, and smoked lenses. Now, the smoked lenses here is the key. These, as you can probably tell already, are pretty much identical to your stock headlights with the exception of those smoked lenses. Now, these are not super dark. They're actually a pretty light tint on there, which I kind of like. I think it looks pretty nice on this truck. However, as you can also see, it does cut the light ever so slightly. These are, again, a little bit more of a warm light, very akin to what we had stock. The beam pattern is a little bit different. You see there's a bit of an overlap there in the center. Now, I did adjust these to get them as close to exact as I possibly could. Even when we flick the high beams on, you can see it is a little bit different. We don't have the same type of hot spotting, but there is some of it there. This is a bit more of an even plateau in the center. And again, this is, especially as compared to the ones that we just had, a bit more of a narrow beam pattern, a bit more of a yellow or warmer color temperature of light. So these are going to be a little bit more akin, again, to your stock ones, just ever so slightly more dim because, again, they're smoked lenses. Now, if you went really dark with your lenses, that is going to cut the light. As cool as we all think they look, it does cut the light output. So just something to keep in mind. Next up, we're going to throw in our first set of LEDs, the reflectors, and I think there's where we're really going to start to see a difference. So now we move back into the truck and we've got LEDs installed. Now these are the Form Lighting LED reflector headlights. So these are a little bit different than the ones that we've looked at already, and they're a little bit different than the ones that come stock on this truck in that they are reflector elements, not projectors. So when you look at the front of it, instead of those round kind of optical glass eye sort of looking things, these have LEDs that are shining down onto what are effectively just mirrors and blasting the light out that way. So if you look on the wall here, you can see, especially along the top edge, it's not as sharp. We don't have that same defined
defined line. So the cutoff here is a lot more rounded. It's not as sharp. Now these do throw light out a little bit wider, so the beam pattern is a bit wider with these versus even the last ones that we just looked at. However, again, as you look out to the sides, you can see that it's a little bit more diffused. It's not very sharp. So these are throwing a bit more light, but it's not quite as well defined as those projectors. And the other thing too, of course, we got to talk about the color temperature. These are much more white, so they're a cooler temperature. These would be like 5,000 or 6,000 K if you hear people throw out those numbers. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. Now, personally, I love the way these look in the truck. I think they look awesome. However, this is a point where you have to decide whether you want to spend a little bit more to get that sharper cutoff, get that wider beam pattern, or if you're okay with having this, you save a little bit money with the reflector setup versus a projector. But again, it's not going to throw the same type of light. Either way, I think these look fantastic, and they're definitely an improvement versus stock. They are throwing more light. I sound like I'm being very negative here, but I'm really not. These are throwing more light. It's just a different kind, and especially after doing 3 projectors in a row, it's a little bit different to look at. Let's say we pop these out and we get our last set in, which are going to be LED projectors. We can kind of get a combination of what we were looking at here and what we saw before. Okay, so here we have our last set of headlights. Now these are the Alpharex Nova Series LED projectors. So as you might expect, they kind of combine what we just saw with the form lighting reflectors with the projectors that we were looking at earlier. And that's pretty much exactly what we've got here. So again, we've got that nice sharp cutoff. I did manage to get these adjusted a little bit better than I anticipated, so you see a bit more of that cutoff. And the same is true for the outer edges. These don't kind of slant off or round off like we saw with the reflectors. They cut off a little bit more sharply. And of course, the color temperature is what you'd expect from an LED as well. It's more white, it's less of that warm yellow, it's more of a cooler temperature, again about 5,000-6,000 K. Same holds true when we pop the high beams on. In this, you see a bit more of a focused beam pattern. Again, we've got a little bit of a hot spot situation going on here because we're a little bit closer to the wall than we should be. But again, these are going to throw things a little bit more sharply. They're going to be a bit more focused the further down the road that you get. And we don't have that big plateau like we saw with the reflectors. Again, it's just more of that focused beam pattern. Again, results pretty much like we expected, but it's nice to be able to demonstrate it.
Well, folks, there we have it. A little idea of what some new headlights might look like on your truck. Again, we wanted to test some different types, reflectors versus projectors, halogens versus LEDs. The results were pretty much as you would expect, but again, it's nice to demonstrate them and physically see what they're going to look like from behind the wheel, since we don't get to show that all the time. Now, obviously, this video is not inclusive of every vehicle that we support, nor is it going to cover every single solitary type of headlight that we support either, but these are kind of the big players in the segment. Gives you an idea of what you might expect, and hopefully gives you an idea of where you might want to start your shopping journey. If you have questions, of course, you can always contact one of our awesome sales techs. They're going to help you pick what's best for your truck if you really don't know where to start or you're suffering from some analysis paralysis. In the meantime, though, be sure to subscribe to the channel, make sure you like this video, and make sure you hit that notification bell as well. We've got new product videos and new content stuff coming your way all the time. And as always, if you have comments, if there's something that you would like to see us demonstrate or check out, we've got a ton of fleet vehicles, we've got a ton of parts at our disposal. Let us know in the comments. Anyway, I'm Jake, this is American Trucks. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.